from Nature Northwest joins me in the studio now to talk about number of different subjects. Aengus, thanks for coming in, first of all.
Thanks a mil, John. Good to be here.
Now, let's talk first of all about things getting warmer, and we had a great spell there for, nearly 4 weeks, and it was glorious. Just a bit more back to normal today. But it's not just out and about that's warm. Our oceans, as we know, are getting warmer as well, and recent figures support that, and that the oceans, the waters around Ireland are getting warmer as well.
They are, yeah. They're breaking records at the moment. There's ocean heat waves happening in many of our oceans around the world. Temperatures are spiking both north and south, which is interesting because, of course, it's winter down south in the south of the globe, but they're also seeing temperature spikes. But the highest spike of all is just off our coast. It's off Ireland, it's off Britain, and it's also the other side of Britain, going into the North Sea. The waters off our coast at the moment are 4 to 5 degrees warmer than they should be at this time of year. 4 to 5 degrees warmer.
Which is great if you're out for a wee swim in the last few weeks. You might have noticed that the water was lovely, but not good for wildlife.
It's not, and the problem with a lot of this kind of warming is it's so fast. It happens so quickly. So wildlife doesn't have time to adjust. We can adjust a lot better, of course, but the fish in the ocean and all the other characters in the ocean, the plankton in the ocean, which is the backbone of all life for us and for everything else that lives in the ocean. It suffers severe stress because of that. And in some places you'll get big algal blooms, which will be bad, and they will take up oxygen, which depletes oxygen for other things. And other places then it just gets too hot for fish, perhaps too hot for them. They can head north, so then there's fishing stocks are affected, and their predators are affected and whatnot. But one of the big effects is on plankton and plankton itself. And of course half of our oxygen comes from plankton. Half of our oxygen comes from tiny microscopic plants that are in the ocean. So every second breath you take. So looking after our oceans is a very important thing, and at the moment they're absorbing a huge amount of heat, and it has the scientists worried.
So already fish around our coast have been overfished for years, and stocks are depleted. But now with the oceans warming, that's not going to help either.
It's not, because it pushes a lot of our fish, of course, are cold water species, and it pushes them further north, and that puts our fishermen under pressure. It puts that whole industry under pressure, and they're under enough pressure, as we know. So it makes it very difficult. Yeah.
All right, from a fish to, of all things, moths, because there was a moth, one particular type of moth in the news last week, and it's called the oak processionary moth, and it was in the news because we were being warned about it to look out for it. It's not around here. There were some cases in Ireland, but not up here.
Not up here.
We know of.
That we know of. That we know of, exactly. And it's another symptom of just our global way of living. Oak processionary moths, they like to eat oak trees. And their larvae, every moth, of course, starts off as a very hungry caterpillar. And they'll eat leaves of some kind. And this type of moth eats oak leaves. And they were discovered in Ireland in 2020 in Dublin for the first time. And the nest was quickly destroyed. And we'll talk about why now in a minute. But they were discovered then again a few days ago, on 4 trees. And the trees had been brought in from Europe. They'd been imported in, and the builder, the developer, didn't know they were doing anything wrong. They brought in these trees and planted the trees on the estate, which seemed like a right thing to do. But those trees were carrying the moth. They'd picked up the moth in Europe, or picked up the little caterpillar, I should say. And when they start off, initially, the caterpillar are very, very small, with their little eggs initially over the winter time, and then they hatch out into a very small caterpillar, so they'd be a hard thing to see. But at this time of year, May, June, July, they grow very, very quickly.
Okay, and that's the reason why we're always checked at airports and ferries for if we're carrying in any livestock or plants, that something like this can and does happen.
A very long time ago, I was lucky enough to live in New Zealand, and I remember arriving in New Zealand and they asked, do you have anything to declare? And I was looking at the declaration, the pictures of the various different things, and one of them was shoes and boots. So I asked people in the queue, and they said, "Oh no, you better go and produce your boots." So I did. I produced my hiking boots, and I remember they washed them. They were as clean when they came out the other side, and I came out through security as the day I bought them.
In case you were carrying something in the grooves at the bottom.
Yeah, because you can carry seeds, you can carry all sorts of different things, but you can carry, say, up to 30 species of seeds for up to 10 kilometres walking. They've done experiments on this. So we've been moving things around the globe for a very long time, and some countries like New Zealand, have been very aware of this, and they've been protecting what they have. We are a little bit slower to catch up on that, but it's a very difficult thing to try and protect from the likes of oak processionary moths, which are so small, tucked up into imported trees, or the same kind of thing for the ash dieback disease. That is a fungal disease that is blowing across Europe. How do you? You can't stop that. But it was initially brought in by trees that were affected from Europe, planted here. The people who did it perfectly innocently. They weren't breaking any rules, thought they were doing the right thing. But it's just part of that whole global trade.
What's the problem with these moths? Why do they want to get rid of them?
They're bad for the trees, so bad for nature. And of course, oak trees will support more life, more insect species than any other type of native tree. So they're a threat to the trees because they can really strip the foliage. But more worryingly, again, is they're a threat to ourselves, and because they have very, very fine hairs. And those very, very fine hairs, if you touch them, if you come into contact, or if they feel threatened, they'll sometimes shed those hairs. They'll blow in the wind, and they can cause nasty reactions. For some people, they can cause kind of asthmatic type reactions, but a lot of it will be a skin irritant. Now, you got to remember that there was 4 of them. 4 of these nests were found, and they were all destroyed, and they were all in Dublin, in a park in Dublin. So it's not an issue that we have here as yet and that we know of. But it's a very interesting story, and it's something that's worth being aware of.
Is it just oak trees that they like?
Pretty much. They do go to a few other species, but mostly it's just oak trees. And they'll munch through everything. But the biggest threat and the biggest worry that they have is these fine little hairs. They turned up in England in 2012. Same thing, trees brought in. Nobody knew these little characters were on them. And that was in London, and now they've spread around Kent and some of these other places around London over the last few years. They're slowly spreading there. They thought they were on top of it, but they seem to be able to get away. Hopefully, our own Department of Agriculture has managed to get on top of those ones and spotted them all, and they're certainly watching out for them.
Okay. Now, this is the time of the year for the cuckoo, and I see there's a project now trying to track the cuckoo. It's a cross-channel project, and the idea is to try to find out where Irish cuckoos actually spend their winter months.
It's a fantastic project. It's a fascinating project. I've put a piece on it, or a link to it, up on my Facebook page, and it's well worth looking at. There's brilliant interactive maps on it. So cuckoos, they come here around about April time. And they come up from Africa, and we've known that for a very long time. And they lay the eggs famously into the meadow pipit's nest, and their egg looks just like the meadow pipit's egg, has those same little brown speckledy patterns the meadow pipit has. And then Dad has bred, and Mum, when she's laid enough eggs, up to 30 eggs in 30 different nests, they abandon ship and they start heading back. So already at this time of year, they're starting to migrate south. It's amazing. We haven't even got to the longest day yet.
So they lay their eggs in the meadow pipit's nest, and they leave the rearing of their young then to these other birds.
Yes, so and those little eggs, they emerge. The chick emerges after only 12 days, which is very, very quick, and then that chick will outcompete and effectively kill off the meadow pipit's chicks, meadow pipit's own offspring. Now, the meadow pipit is a little bit bigger than a robin, not much bigger than a robin, smaller than a blackbird, bigger than a robin, whereas the cuckoo will eventually grow into something the size of a pigeon. So
we have this romantic notion about the cuckoo because their distinctive call, but really they're a sneaky bird, and not a bit nice when you realise that the meadow pipits then are killed off, and it's only the cuckoo that survives in the nest.
That's exactly it. It's funny, we as humans place our own kind of emotional boundaries on things, and we think cuckoos are wonderful. We love to hear the sound. We think it's brilliant, these characters back from Africa, whereas we vilify magpies. And magpies are much better parents. Rear their young. They put a roof on their own nests. They look after their young so well. They're a very clever bird, and so on. Whereas the cuckoo, so it lays an egg in the meadow pipit's nest and then goes. And it's an amazing relationship, really. And the poor meadow pipit doesn't figure it out and keeps just trying to feed this oversized chick. And eventually that chick is able to make its way back to Africa with no map, no mobile phone, no GPS, and no parent to guide it. It's not like the swallows where it's forming big flocks and it's heading off with birds that have done the trip before. It's able to make its way back to Africa all on its own, and that's what they're trying to figure out with this project. Where do they go? How do they get there? Do they stop? That kind of thing.
Okay, so where in Africa they go, how long it takes them there, how often they stop, that they just want to work out precisely.
So they want to try and figure that out, and they've so this project has been going on by the the British bird situation, the BTO, since 2011. And they have tracked over 100 birds. Amazing the technology. They're able to get tiny little satellite trackers and put them onto the bird. And these things are so small and weigh so little that they don't bother the bird at all. And they're able to tell them very precisely where they go. Some of the birds head off through Italy, for instance. Some of the birds head off through Spain. They're able to fly 1,000 kilometres without stopping, or across oceans. They're able to fly straight across the Sahara Desert without stopping, because, of course, there's no food for them there. And eventually they end up kind of down in the bottom middle of Africa, down the Congo Basin. And that's where they spend the winter until about January, and they start mooching their way back up. So they've tagged a few Irish birds, and they want to see what happens with them.
And what's the numbers of the cuckoo like here in Ireland? So
our numbers, sadly, are going down. They've dropped by as a 25%, 27% in the last couple of census. That was between when there was a big count done in the 60s and another big count done about 10 years ago. So that data is over 10 years old, and they were down by 27%. I would say it's a very safe bet to say that those numbers have gone down even more. And a lot of that is habitat loss. The birds that they lay their egg into, the meadow pipit, that is a bird that's under threat as well. There's an awful lot more of them, but they're also under threat, again, because of habitat loss. But this project will give so much more information. And if you have a look at the link that we spread around, and I'll send it to your own Facebook page as well. It has a map that you can look at the Irish birds, and if you press play on the top of the map, it will show you its progress, those birds that they've tagged and where they've got to. And very wise Irish birds, because the survival rate seems to be higher if you go down towards Italy, for the birds that go down towards Italy and then head down south into Africa, as opposed to the ones that go down in Spain. Because climate change, much as we touched on a few minutes ago, is causing huge droughts in Spain. And that puts pressures on the insects, which puts pressures on the birds. And the Irish ones so far have found themselves somewhere between Marseille and Monaco. Nice parts of the world to go to. So that's where the Irish cuckoos are right now. It's amazing.
So a lot depends on what road they take, their survival rate.
Yeah, completely. And they found that they have the ability to be able to double track. So if they get to an area that they believed was going to be good for refueling, and there isn't food, they have the smartness to be able to go back again. Another amazing thing with bird migration that they found through this tracking project is that the chick that will leave Ireland in the next few weeks, once it's fully grown, it will take a much more direct route. And it won't have many stopovers. That's hardwired into its brain. It's able to find out, most likely, but they're not definitive in this, but most likely through following the magnetic curvature that they believe they can see. They can actually visualize the magnetic field around the world. In a way, of course, we can't do that at all. So they're able to follow that, and that helps guide them where they are. But then they find the same bird the next year and the following year. They will divert their course to places that have better food. So they're able to learn from visual landscapes, visual clues in the landscape, and figure out where the food was best and where it might be best to hang a left or hang a right to get more moths. Hopefully some of those processionary moths and whatnot, because it's the caterpillars that the cuckoos like to eat.
Okay. Amazing, because there's so much, as you say, hardwired, and then they learn as they go as well every year.
Yeah. It's a fascinating project. Yeah.
Okay. Finally, I mentioned for a nature walk that's on this coming weekend.
Yeah, so there's a nature walk on the 25th. The 25th is World Sand Dune Day, so there's all sorts of events happening all over the place celebrating sand dunes. And there is a wonderful programme that has just started. It is one of these EU Life programmes. And the EU Life programmes, there's quite a few running at the moment in Donegal and down the west coast of Ireland. They're supporting farmers to restore habitats. They're long-term programmes. They've got good grants behind them. They're a very positive thing, and they've been signed up to. And there's one just started called Life on Maher. And Maher is a unique type of sand dune habitat that only exists on the west coast of Ireland and the west coast of Scotland. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. So there's a couple of sites that they're looking at restoring those habitats, and one of them is around, it's in Gweedore and around that area, and they are having a walk on the 25th, this Saturday at 3 p.m, meeting at Bawd Eddy, and there'll be various different talkers, contributors, telling you about the project, telling you about all of the good things that are happening, and explaining some of the wonders of beautiful Maher habitat.
Brilliant. And what time does that start at?
That's 3 p.m. 3 p.m. this Saturday, meeting at Bawd Eddy.
Okay. Aengus, thank you.
Super. Thanks, John.
We love summer at Dunnes Stores. Saving the aisles when you